Alright guys, I'm so salty that this is take 2 of this video because I started cussing way too early into the beginning of the last one, but I'm still here to eat crow and recap the main event and the main card of UFC Atlantic City for you guys. We'll start with the main event. Manon Fiorot looked kind of compromised in this main event, I'm not going to lie with you guys. The main reason is because she wasn't really moving in a whole lot or fighting on her front foot. She was doing a lot of fighting on her back foot, countering Erin Blanchfield when she came in, which was working successfully for her. And she was also really focused on getting underhooks whenever Erin Blanchfield got a body lock with her, and also on stuffing takedowns as early as she could. I will say that Erin Blanchfield wasn't credited with any takedowns, but she did actually hit an inside trip at one point, but Fiorot was able to immediately reverse it. So Erin Blanchfield did not have success in her grappling in this fight, and I think the big reason for this, and the reason that I started cursing last time, is because of this, because of how depleted Manon Fiorot gets every time she gets to the scale. So if you guys want to be a successful fighter, here is my advice. So you just need to pick like one skill set, hone it, right? Obviously be a well-rounded martial artist, but then you want to figure out what your right weight class is, right? Find what like the healthy weight class for your body to cut down to is, and then cut 2 weight classes lower than that. And then that's how you be a successful fighter. You'll win every time because it doesn't matter how good the other person is. You'll just weight bully them until you win. So that's awesome. Manon Fiorot's a weight bully loser. Erin Blanchfield didn't really shoot for the legs a ton, which I was disappointed by. I would have loved to see her work the boxing combinations when she had success with them in the later rounds as Fiorot was beginning to slow down and give her more openings on the feet to see her shoot for the legs. But when she did try, it was stuffed by Fiorot, so you can see Fiorot was very on top of it and thinking about the grappling. So I'll eat my crow here. You know, Erin Blanchfield was a bad pick here. I thought she would have made more improvements in the striking. And to be fair, I think she did look better in the striking than she has in her previous fight. She was landing well on Manon Fiorot. She landed in volume. She landed a lot of nice kicks to the body. One thing Rashad Evans pointed out after the fight was that she wasn't really landing punches to the body. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Manon Fiorot wasn't really comfortable letting Erin back her up at any points in the fight. So it's kind of hard to throw combinations to the body, but I still think it would have been nice to see her like jab to the body from range, which is a lot easier to do than obviously landing like serious strikes to the body like hooks. But regardless, it would still mask the takedown entries because now you don't know if you have to guard her from striking your body or you have to defend a takedown when she changes levels. So that would have been nice to see as well. And we didn't see a lot of that out of Erin Blanchfield, but she did land a really nice head kick that appeared to stun Manon Fiorot at one point. And while she got hit with some really nice strikes, she never stopped coming forward. So I don't think that she lost a ton of stock in this performance. I think I'm late enough now to say that Manon Fiorot is a weight bully piece of shit. She's a fucking loser. Honestly, she would lose to Grasso or Shevchenko. That might be a hot take. I think there's going to be a lot of Manon Glazers coming out after this performance. And I think that there's also a lot of shit talk around both Grasso and Shevchenko, with a lot of it being warranted. I mean, bad fight IQ from Grasso at many points in time during their second fight. I thought she had a great game plan and executed it really well in their first fight while it was on the feet, and obviously had that prepared move for the stupid spinning shit from Shevchenko. And obviously Shevchenko deserves her slander as well, too, with her terrible fight IQ to give up round 5 to Alexa Grasso and ultimately make that fight a draw, when she ultimately would have won it on Mike Bell's scorecard if she hadn't done that. You also had just the terrible head and arm throws from her in all of her fights. She just loves throwing that terrible head and arm throw all the time. But while Manon is super physical, and I think she would be a lot bigger in the octagon than Grasso or Shevchenko, I think that if Blanchfield can find big openings on you on the feet, than both of those ladies can. I think that they're both more dangerous in the striking. I could see Shevchenko landing a head kick with Jessica I-like brutality, and I could see Grasso's boxing posing a lot more problems to Manon Fiorot, whose striking is kind of getting exposed, guys. The striking's supposed to be the main thing for her, but she was competitive in the striking here. Obviously, she 50-45'd her on all judges' scorecards. I'm not saying the fight was competitive in that capacity. I think that there's room to give round 4 to Erin Blanchfield, though, which I think that some of the scorecards I've seen did as well. And not only that, but Erin Blanchfield landed in volume on her. And she was also competitive in the striking with Rose Namajunas with fucking broken pinky, who's just a fat 115-pounder. So, Manon Fiorot, don't get to overrating her based on this performance. She's not that good, alright? And I really want to see her lose. I would really like to see her lose. For Blanchfield, I'm not really that worried. She's only 24. I was picking her because I'm a huge fan, and I'm going to remain a fan as well. I think that she's got a lot of potential to be really dangerous. She's just got to work it out on the feet, and I think she will. I think that she'll bounce back from this for sure. I'm just excited to see who that is against and how they can justify it headlining in the Apex somehow. But let's move down the card. You had a really interesting fight here between Vincete Luque and Joaquin Buckley. You saw a lot of wild exchanges on the feet, largely getting mitigated throughout round 1 by Vincete Luque's footwork, but both guys catching each other at several points in time. It was a pretty competitive round, but I went ahead and scored it for Buckley while I was watching live. But the real story of this fight comes down to in round 2 when Vincete Luque shoots for a takedown. He gets it stuffed, and then he pulls guard, and it was terrible. So bad. And Joaquin Buckley starts raining down shots on him, and Luque's immediately just covering up. You don't see him like trying to pull Buckley in. It wouldn't have been super doable for him there at the beginning, but it was really the only window he had to do it before Buckley really started teeing off on him. And there was certain points where he started to get his hips moving. He thought maybe he could kind of start to get active and look for a submission, but he wasn't able to before Joaquin Buckley started raining down hammers on him, and the ref was forced to step in. It was a good stoppage, I feel, and a terrible guard pull from Vincete Luque. So if that teaches you anything, guys, it's that you do want to be a weight bully piece of shit loser, and you don't want to pull guard in your fights, unless you're Charles Oliveira. Then you can pull guard, but if you're not Charles Oliveira, don't pull guard in your fights. Then there was a couple of controversial fights. This was one of them here. The first one we'll talk about, Chris Weidman facing off against Bruno Silva. And this fight was really interesting. So you had Chris Weidman winning the first 2 rounds, and he was striking well with Bruno Silva, actually. They were getting into some pretty lippy exchanges with each other, and I had predicted that Bruno Silva was going to knock out Chris Weidman, so when they were swinging and banging with each other, I was expecting that to go really poorly for Chris Weidman, but it ended up not going that bad for him. He ends up winning the first 2 rounds. He actually really didn't have much success with his grappling either. He was throwing a ton of kicks, a lot of them with his right leg, which, in case you don't know, is the one that was broken. He was throwing kicks to the leg. Some of them got checked, which did appear to affect him and made him switch stances for a little bit. But he was still alright, and it didn't hurt him nearly as bad as when he was in that Brad Tavares fight, wobbling all over the place. And the controversy in this fight comes in round 3 when Bruno Silva is blitzing forward, and there was already a point earlier where they had both exchanged eye pokes with each other. There was a bunch of eye pokes throughout the fight, but Bruno Silva's blitzing forward catches a lead hand eye poke from Chris Weidman, and then a rear hand eye poke to the other eye, and then Weidman throws a left hand, but there's not a ton of power on the left hand. Doesn't look like it connects very cleanly. But for some reason, Bruno Silva decides to fall down on the ground in response to those eye pokes, which was pretty silly. And Weidman swarms him with ground and pound and gets the finish for right then. And there's a ton of confusion as what's going to happen because we have the video up that there's the eye pokes. We're not super sure how that's going to go. But Bruce Buffer ends up reading it as a TKO for Weidman. And immediately afterwards, commentary reads it as a decision, a unanimous decision win for Chris Weidman. And the reason that it had been changed is because of the review of the eye pokes, which they had totally had. I don't know if they just decided, like, off of a referee call and then overruled it, but they definitely, before that call was made, had the evidence to know it was an eye poke. But regardless, it was immediately overturned to a unanimous decision. How they handled it is that at the point the eye pokes were landed, which is roughly around the time that the finish would have been, just a little bit before it, they stopped the fight then, because the fight wouldn't have been continuable from the eye pokes and then the damage that happened afterwards. But since they weren't intentional eye pokes, the fight is brought to a technical decision, and you don't really see that happen that often. But essentially how it works is that the fight is scored up until that point. So they've already got scorecards for rounds 1 and 2. That's fairly simple, and both of those were already for Weidman on every judge's scorecard. Then they scored round 3, which also went to Weidman on every judge's scorecard for a 30-27 unanimous technical decision win. Very weird, but not going to be overturned like the knockout I thought would be. I said live I think that'll be overturned if I was Bruno Silva's camp. I'd be looking to get that overturned for sure. Moving on down the card, you had Nursulton Rozabayev also getting a really controversial win by eye-poking Sejikos Dumas. And then Sejikos Dumas was messing with his eye, looked over at the referee, and then Rozabayev swarmed him and finished him 3 minutes into round 1 for a controversial finish. And then Kyle Nelson, I wasn't really paying attention, but he did finish Bill Algeo. It looked like there was some protest from Bill Algeo, so I don't know if that was an early stoppage or not. I was in the middle of doing something for that fight, so I'll have to watch that back and get you guys my more in-depth reaction to that later. But let me know what you guys thought about these fights. Do you guys think it's cool to be a weight bully piece of shit? Yeah, just let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Like if you liked, sub for more, and thanks for stopping by, homies. Peace out.